Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mok-yeon. Nowadays, women are playing a bigger role across the economy, but for many, the path to leadership is still quite far from equal. In Korea, career interruption remains a stubborn challenge, and the gap in advancement continues to raise questions about how much progress has really been made. So on Within the Frame tonight, we shed light on the areas where opportunities for women are expanding, what obstacles remain, and what changes are still needed to help more women build sustainable careers and move into leadership. For a deeper discussion on this, we are joined in the studio by Marie Antonia von Schönburg, President and CEO of the Korea-German Chamber of Commerce and Industry, here in the studio to my right. Very big welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
And also joining us in the studio is Kim Joo-ho, co-chair of Women in Korea. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation and happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day. Now, I want to begin our discussion with Ms. von Schönburg first. Of course, many global companies lately have been highlighting diversity and inclusion as their key management values. What kind of changes do you think women's participation to a company actually brings to the company?
I believe that diversity in general, and that obviously is the case for women, but just really any kind of diversity is very important for companies. The more different perspectives you have at the table, be it gender, be it nationality, be it technical background, the more diverse and more challenging the views are going to be at the table, asking the right questions and really kind of bringing forward more innovative and more diverse and more balanced companies. There's actually a recent study from Forbes where if there's at least 30% of women in leadership positions, it's 12 times more likely that these companies will be performing in the top 20 when it comes to financial outcome. That should give you pause and think of it and think, why is it not 50% of female leadership? And also, you know, when we see the struggle in Germany, and I think here in Korea as well, for finding the right talent, constantly asking for where is the talent, it's the other 50% of the population that needs to be included, needs to be at the table.
Right. So it really shows how much important it is to bring women into the business area. Now, when we turn to Korea a little bit, Ms. Ho, there's still concerns that there are a lot of gaps when it comes to women's participation in the economy and in terms of leadership roles. So how would you assess the current environment for women's economic participation here in South Korea?
Well, in Korea, approximately 60% of the women participate in the economy. But if you look at women in leadership roles, it's a completely different picture. Among the top 500 companies in Korea, women hold about 8.1% executive positions. If you look at board seats, we have about 24% of women on board, but this is for outside directors. If you look at inside directors, we are only at about 2.1%. So this shows the big gap between the percentage of women participating in the economy and women in leadership roles. My perspective, though, is that there has been progress. It's just that the progress has been slow. So there are some factors that has contributed to the progress. First is the Capital Market Act. I mentioned a while ago that we have 24% women on board, and this is largely due to the Capital Market Act. Secondly, data disaggregation, which is very important when we talk about women empowerment. Since 2014, the Financial Supervisory Service has been disaggregating the data between men and women for executive positions. Back then, the percentage of women in executive roles was about 2%. So you see that there has been some improvement. Now, if we look from a policy framework, Korea has universal childcare, we have parental leave, we have a lot of support system, but we still have what we call the M curve. So women leave work for childbirth, for child care or even education. But when they return as part-timers or do not return at all. So going forward, I think we need to not just focus on the hard approach. By hard approach, I'm talking about the policy formulations and the system. I think we should also focus on some soft approach. By soft approach, I'm referring to cultural or structural aspects. And I think the KGCCI Rear Mentorship is a good example of a soft approach.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into more of the women's WIR soon, but before that, you've mentioned a lot of factors that contribute to, the current situation about women's leadership here in Korea. And you mentioned the career interruption. Tell us more about that. Like, how would you assess the current situation on that here in the country?
Well, globally, I want to talk first from an economic perspective. According to the studies of McKinsey, if we can utilize the resource of women as much as we do with men today, the global GDP can grow by 20%. For Korea, studies show that 2%, up to 2% can be added to the GDP. But there's still that leakage of pipeline, which makes it difficult for women to move up to leadership positions. So what are the changes that needs to take place? I would say, first of all, we need public-private sector collaborative efforts. And we also need to take what I just said, the hard approach and the soft approach at the same time. For the public sector, I think that it's important to continue to look for policies to support women. My personal recommendation is mandatory paternal leave. At the same time, I believe that the public sector should be able to work with the private sector in terms of incentivizing, rewarding companies with best practices. The private sector should also make efforts. I think in Korea, organizational changes definitely needs to be taken into consideration, including advancement of leadership for women, training programs, reskilling, upskilling, mentorship, and sponsorship can all be included in these programs. Also, from an HR perspective, DI or DEI initiatives definitely needs to be integrated into all of the HR policies. And lastly, organizational de-biasing, I believe, is also very important. And one element that I also want to point out is with the digital transformation now, women have more opportunities to become entrepreneurs, to have more control over work-life balance. So I think that is another change in our society.
Right. So a very important message that you've gave us. It's important for support policies from the government as well as changes among, the atmosphere of private sectors as well. Now, in that context, Ms. von Schönburg, when you compare the corporate culture in Europe and in Korea, what kind of differences would you say stands out the most?
It's hard to compare Europe as a whole with Korea. I think within Europe, there are huge structural differences as well. If you look at countries like Sweden, where 44% of women are in managerial positions. So it shows that as soon as there is a change, a shift in both society and companies, and Kim Ju already mentioned that, then there is a chance for women to be more active in the workforce. So I would say that what we can learn, especially from Northern European countries, is definitely the possibility for women to get more support. And Kim Ju already mentioned it as well, include men way more into support at home. I think that is the most important part, because bringing women forward or supporting women in the company alone will never be enough. There will always be challenges for women who basically have to do two jobs, one during the day and then one at night at the house. So all these advantages of parental leave, of possibilities of part-time, the possibilities of remote work, they're really only very helpful when there is support by males to kind of take the workload, the unseen workload of women. And I think when you say Europe, what I'm thinking is Northern Europe. They're doing a really, really good job, and even Germany can still learn a lot from them. So I feel that in Germany we are, when you look at the statistics, yes, we have more women in managerial roles than Korea, but I think we're actually struggling a bit the same fight. We're fighting the same fight to make it easier on a societal level for women to take up roles in companies and in society in general, and be part of the statistical GDP.
Mm-hmm. Right, and as you said, boosting male participation would definitely help share the burden for women as well. Now, when we go against the backdrop to support women's career development, KGCCI launched the Women in Korea initiative in 2018. You've slightly touched upon that a while ago. As a co-founder and co-chair, tell us about the background. What prompted you to launch this platform?
Well, in 2017, for the first time in the history of the KGCCI, women assumed the position of chair and president. So these two remarkable women, Ingrid Dreschel and Barbara Zolman, they approached me and asked me if I can set up a mentorship program for them. And my answer was an immediate yes. We all believed that if we can unlock the potentials of the women managers, that we can have more women in leadership roles. What we believed is that they just need support, and mentorship we thought would be a good tool. So we meticulously planned it for 1 year and launched the program in 2018. We call it WIR, W-I-R. In German, it means we, reflecting our togetherness and collaboration. We also focus on 3 areas, which is gender, generation, and geography. So when we were launching it, we said that anyone who leaves Korea should set up another WIR program in wherever continent they are. So that was the motive behind it. And the WIR program has flourished. We survived COVID, and now it has become one of the most active Korean-German business community.
Wow, so it's about 8 years now.
Yes.
And still running strong.
Yes, yes.
We're also aware that you are the co-chair of WIR too. What would you say, would be so unique about WIR mentorship program from other leadership programs?
I think it is the structured one-on-one mentoring approach that we have. We're not aware of any other international chamber doing it, at least at this scale. We've matched over 300 people in the program so far, and this year it's another 35 couples that we've matched. So this is one of the differentiations. And also, we're so lucky, besides of Kumju, we have many female leaderships from big German companies who support us, co-founders from Deutsche Bank and from Bayer, Boehringer Ingelheim, so big companies that are really supporting us. And I think, so both the idea of one-on-one mentorship, as well as the intercultural aspect, are 2 things that make it very unique, and I think make it very efficient as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely seems like a very good opportunity for participants. Now, since its launch, the program has connected hundreds of women professionals, as Ms. von Schönburg has just mentioned. So looking back, what would you say is the most meaningful outcome of the program?
Well, when we first launched the program, we wanted to create an ecosystem, a system where the mentors and the mentees continue to network and continue to grow. And we wanted the mentees to get promoted to executive positions and become mentors, create that virtuous circle, and we call it the ecosystem. I think the most meaningful moment for me was when my mentee got promoted to an executive position and became a mentor. And ever since Marie came to Korea, we've also scaled up our program. We have recently been featured at a publication called Organizational Dynamics. Recently, there's also some MOUs, for example, with the Sungju Foundation and with the National Council of Women.
So it really seems to be a very meaningful outcome of that. But when we zoom out a little bit, Ms. Ha, for South Korea, what do you think are the key challenges that still needs to be really addressed for women to, move and succeed into leadership positions in the country?
Well, it's a very good question, but it's also a very hard one to answer. I want to speak from my experience with the G20 Empower Alliance, where I am the Korea representative. At the G20, we had discussions on what are some of the barriers that hinders women to move up to leadership positions. Surprisingly, when the representatives from 20 countries all sat together and discussed the barriers, we came up with 4 common aspects. The first is cultural. Second, structural. Third, data disaggregation. And fourth was self-imposed limitations that women put on themselves. We saw that these were the 4 barriers for the women to move up to leadership positions. In Korea, I think probably similar in other Asian countries, I think first of all, the leakage of the pipeline, which I had talked about. Second, I would say, is the anytime, anywhere model. The anytime, anywhere model is where women have to be the mother, the daughter-in-law. And all women always try to perform or outperform, really putting pressures on themselves. And the third is the lack of role model. So I think these are some of the challenges that Asian women, Korean women face these days.
Very important, and I can really relate to those kinds of barriers, and let's hope that would be eliminated as soon as possible. Now, the KGCCI also represents the Korean German business community. So how can international networks like WEIR help spread more inclusive leadership across different cultures?
Adding to what Kumju just said, first of all, offering role models, because as I earlier said, in Europe, more women are in positions of power, politics, companies, you name it. So we can bring that perspective to Korean women here and show them, look, it's possible. Also, European companies tend to have less hierarchical structures, so it's also trying to create an understanding of that leadership is not necessarily only tied to hierarchy, to a certain title. And so the intercultural perspective also brings different points of view. At the beginning we said it's the more diversity there is in a company, or in society in general, the better it is prepared for any kind of challenges. And I think that within the international, the German-Korean community, we can bring that to the table. We can include WEIR in our international community, and we can bring WEIR talent, new female talent to the companies.
So it really highlights the role international networks can actually play. Well, this conversation was really inspiring for me personally, and I could really connect to it. So before we conclude our discussion tonight, I would want to ask, for the millions of young women building their careers, what kind of advice would you like to give for young women who are just starting to build their careers?
Don't wait for permission. You already are a leader, and don't let anyone tell you you're not.
Wow.
Don't don't let self-imposed limitations hold you back. You already are a leader, and just go for it. Don't ask for permission.
I must say, wow. What about Ms. Ho? Do you have anything to add on that?
I would say have your own definition of success. So that means be successful. Try to build your career around your strength. And network. Look for mentors, sponsors, and most importantly, never give up.
A very, very strong message to conclude our discussion tonight. Thank you so much for your insights, Ms. Ha.
Thank you very much for your time.
And also, Ms. von Schönburg, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity of being here. Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.